We'll continue now with the laws of Tisha B'av, based on the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, siman Kuf Chav Daled, 124, Vav, and elaborate on a few things. Vav, he speaks about those that are obligated in fasting. He writes that even women that are pregnant or nursing, although they're very uncomfortable, have to finish the fast, unless there's room to be afraid that they might fall into a danger. But a sick person, even though he's not endangered, he's not in danger or a life-threatening situation, so for him we could be lenient that he doesn't have to finish off the fast. However, he should fast a few hours, just in the morning. Obviously by night people aren't usually hungry, so he already had a whole meal. But by day he should fast for a few hours, and if possible. And particularly if he's weak, naturally he's weak, so a sick person should not fast. In general, in today's day and age, there are different leniencies that are applied. Yom Kippur is the most strictest fast because it's Minat Torah, it's biblical. The fast of Tisha B'av, although it's stricter than the other fasts, like Shiva Asar B'Tammuz, and Same Gedali, and Asar B'Teves, and Tainus Esther. But it's more stricter than that, but nevertheless it's not as strict as Yom Kippur. And in general, today by Rabbanim it's accepted a certain leniencies in the case of a woman that's pregnant or nursing. So if she might get sick, or if she's really suffering, whatever it might be, one should speak to their Rav, ask a Shailas Chacham, and follow what he says. A sick person, somebody that's in danger or has a life-threatening situation, obviously there's no question about it. Even in Yom Kippur, he's allowed to eat. Obviously on Tisha B'av, which is not as strict as Yom Kippur, he's allowed to eat. But even somebody that's not in a life-threatening situation, but he's ill, he has to lay in bed, his whole body's weakened, whatever the exact definition is, doesn't have to fast, he's not supposed to eat. And all he says is he should fast a few hours a day. And that also, Paskin right, is only if it's possible. If he wakes up in the morning and it's important for him to eat right away, so he shouldn't feel sick, then there's room to be lenient in that. It's just if possible, there's a priority that he should at least, fast a few hours in the morning. There's a discussion whether in such a case one should eat shiurim on Yom Kippur. If somebody has to fast, somebody can't fast, so although there are permissibilities, somebody's in danger, whatever, that he doesn't have to fast, but nevertheless, since on Yom Kippur there is a Torah prohibition of eating, so we minimize the prohibition by only eating amounts which one would not be obligated, would not be punishable for eating it on, would not get the punishment which the Torah gives for eating it on Yom Kippur. And there's a certain amount, a certain shear, and there's a certain amount of time as well that you break it up in. So that's Yom Kippur. In such a case, the person should speak to their Rav if need be, how exactly that's done. But when it comes to the other fasts, or even Tisha B'av, there's a discussion amongst the Rabbanim whether a sick person that has to eat, whether he should eat it in such a way that he should, he only eats small amounts and split it up every number of minutes. The person should speak to their Rav and get the psak from him. However, one thing that he says, as we'll soon see, is that even those that could eat should not eat delicacies and things like that, only what they need. A woman that gave birth, so he says after 7 days until 30 days, also has a law of a sick person that's not in danger, that even though she herself is not sick, but she's considered as if she has the same status as somebody that's sick, it's not in danger, and therefore she does not have to fast. But if she feels in herself that she's healthy and that the fast won't hurt her, she's allowed to fast. There's a bit of discussion over here. Some people are very much more cautious. For a Yoldus, a woman that gave birth, again, one should speak to their Rav about this. However, those that need to eat should not be misanik, should not eat delicacies. Only they should eat for what is healthy. They should not eat, things that are just eaten for pleasure, but whatever they need to give them strength, whatever it is, they're allowed to eat, but not more. That itself, there are some poskim say that, if it's enough for them to eat only one meal, they shouldn't eat 2 meals. Whatever it is, obviously would depend on what exactly are the needs of this particular sick person. In any case, in any of these types of situations, it's important to speak to a Rav, and because it's a case-by-case situation, and one should consult with his Rav. Small children obviously don't fast. The custom is that after 9 years and up, they fast for a few hours. In other words, instead of eating right when they wake up, we push it off for a few hours, and they don't start fasting until by the bar mitzvah. The customs we fast before the bar mitzvah, whatever it might be, but before that time they don't fast. They only fast for a few hours in the morning. Siv Zayin, he speaks about bathing, rechitza. One of the prohibitions on Tisha B'av is that one is not allowed to bathe, one is not allowed to bathe or wash himself, both in hot or cold water, and even just to stick his finger into water is prohibited. However, the criteria is, the only thing that's prohibited is washing for pleasure. But if he's not washing for pleasure, it's permissible. Therefore, in the morning when we wash negel Wasser, we wash our hands for negel Wasser, because we're not washing our hands for pleasure, but just to get off the spirit of impurity. That is why we wash negel Wasser, one of the reasons. But we only wash the fingers up until their connection to the palm of the hand, and not the whole hand. After he dries his hands and they're still a bit damp, he could put some people, they in order to feel awakened, they need to wash their eyes in the morning. That is not allowed to be done on Tisha B'av, but after he dries his hands and they're still a bit that moist, he could put them over his eyes to dampen his eyes. If his eyes are dirty, however, and usually he washes them with water in the morning, so he's allowed to do it also now on Tisha B'av. He doesn't have to be worried about it. Because the criteria, again, is the only prohibition is for something that is done for pleasure, not for something which is done in order to take off dirt or so on. So too, if his hands are dirty with mud, he's allowed to wash the place that's dirty. If a person, usually when he cleans himself after he goes to the bathroom, if he usually uses water, he's allowed to do the same thing on Tisha B'av. And so too, before Mincha, we're supposed to wash our hands before we daven. So before Mincha and Tisha B'av as well, one is allowed to wash his hands, but in all these cases, he should wash his hands only the fingers, not the whole palm of the hand. Discussion here in the Kitzur Shulchan, if a person goes to the bathroom and he didn't get his hands dirty, whether he should wash his hands for saying Asher Yotzar. If it's before davening, so then he definitely could wash his hands, because anyway washing his hands before davening. If his hands got dirty, he could definitely wash his hands in order to make Asher Yotzar. But if he didn't get his hands dirty, so then on Yom Kippur, the halacha says, the Alter Rebbe writes in Shulchan Aruch, is that one should make Asher Yotzar without washing his hands, because al pi halacha he's allowed to say Asher Yotzar without washing his hands if they didn't get dirty. On Yom Kippur itself, people most of the day is usually involved in davening, so usually, even if you didn't get your hands dirty, you would be able to wash your hands in order to be able to say Asher Yotzar with clean hands, and because you anyway have to wash your hands because you're in the middle of davening, continuing davening. On Tisha B'av, that's not the case. So, it would seem from the Kitzur Shulchan that unless a person got his hands dirty, he had to clean up after himself, whatever it might be. So if his hands were clean, if his hands didn't touch anything directly, he wouldn't be able to wash his hands in order to say Asher Yotzar. And Yom Kippur, the Alter Rebbe writes that in such a case, one should bedafka, get his hands a bit dirty, cleaning up a bit in order to cleaning up whatever might have spilled, whatever, in order to be able to say Asher Yotzar, in order to wash his hands before saying Asher Yotzar. But this is That's the basic halacha that the Mesgeres HaShulchan brings down over here. Rinsing out your mouth would obviously also be prohibited along these same lines, that one is not supposed to wash out their mouth or wash any part of their body. It's only if it's dirty there's a permissibility. What if somebody has a lot of tsar, a person has bad breath, very bad breath, and he's embarrassed to go amongst people, or he has a very great pain, he just doesn't feel settled without rinsing his mouth? So if it's, Poskim say that b'mokim tsar gadol, by Tisha B'av, is more strict than other fasts. Other fasts, even if he's just in the, just stam tsar, just stam pain, Poskim are lenient for him to rinse his mouth out, but he has to be very careful that he shouldn't swallow any water. So he would have to wash out his mouth with his throat, facing very, bent down all the way, that no water he shouldn't swallow any water. On Tisha B'av itself, we're more strict. He's not allowed to wash out his mouth unless he has a tsar gadol, very great pain, and in such a case also would have to bend his head all the way down that he shouldn't swallow any water. Another advice that's given is that if he has a lot of great pain, and again he's going to feel, he's not going to be able to, it's going to be very jittery, and he will feel very embarrassed to walk around with a bad breath, or he won't be able to focus if he's not going to rinse out his mouth. Another alternative, or maybe more simpler alternative, is that they allow one to use Listerine or mouthwash, because one is not going to swallow that for sure. Nobody's going to want to swallow that. And some people, some mention it shouldn't have a good taste, whatever that means. The bottom line is, what all the criteria here is that one shouldn't swallow it. So usually these mouthwashes are made in such a way that nobody would want to swallow it. So then again, b'mokim tsar gadol, if a person will really feels he won't be able to function during the day, or he's going to be very embarrassed with bad breath, there's room to be lenient in such a case. Washing the face, as well as we see here, is prohibited. There's a discussion in Poskim, if a person really feels unsettled, there's a bit of discussion in Poskim about this. One should ask thereof. Sif Ches says women that cook food and they have to rinse off the fruits, vegetables, whatever they're making, they're allowed to do it, because their intention is not to wash themselves, their intention is to wash off the fruits and vegetables. Poskim bring down that it's better, it seems in Poskim that some Poskim only permit it in cold water, so it would definitely be preferable to only use cold water or not hot water. It continues discussing somebody that's going for the need of a mitzvah and he has to go through water. If he's allowed to, and if he's going in order to prevent monetary loss, he's only allowed to go through water on the way there, but not on the way back. It's not a very common practice today. Today we're not, usually we could go by, if we have to go anywhere, we go by car or whatever it might be. People don't walk through big stretches of land, particularly through having to go through lakes, whatever it might be. Somebody that walked and his feet, he's coming from the road. Those days people would walk miles, travel by foot, and he came to his destination and his feet are, very weak from traveling. So he's allowed to wash them in water in order to, to revive them, to come back to normal. In Sif Tes, he goes on to say that somebody that because of this also, that although bathing is only prohibited if the purpose is for pleasure, nevertheless a woman does not go to the mikveh on the night of Tisha B'av because marital relations are prohibited anyway on Tisha B'av. In Sif Yud, he speaks about sicha. Sicha is smearing, anointing. That smearing, it's only a smearing of tainug, one of smearing oil on his body for pleasure is prohibited, but somebody that has scabs or on his head or whatever on his body for the need of any other any other health purposes, is allowed to smear oil. Now, today's day and age, nobody usually smears oil on their body. It's not like in those days that people was part of the custom was people would smear oil. But one thing which is applicable to today's day and age is different lotions and moisturizers or cosmetics that women put on. These things would be prohibited to put on Tisha B'av, because this would fall under this category of sicha, of smearing. Somebody needs to put on a lotion for refuah, for health. It's obviously, we just said that for matters of refuah, things are permissible. In Sif Yud Aleph, it speaks about putting on shoes, that the only prohibition is to put on shoes that are made out of leather, but if it's made out of other materials, it's permissible, as long as there's no leather. There's no leather in the shoe. Sometimes shoes are coated with leather, they have a leather upper piece. So today you have many shoes out there, you have Crocs, many things that are not made out of leather. So those things are permissible. There are those that in general question the use of using shoes that are just as comfortable as leather shoes, but they're just not made out of leather. So they question whether it would help to put them on on Tisha B'av. Peil Mamish, Minik Chabad, is that go like the opinions that are lenient, that the only prohibition is shoes that are made out of leather, but shoes that are made of other things. When Peil Mamish, the minig is that we're makel in this. He speaks here in certain cases where he says somebody that's going amongst the Gentiles and he's afraid they're going to laugh at him if he won't wear proper shoes. He permits people to put on shoes in such a case, but they should put dirt in their shoes, so at least they should have a bit of discomfort. But however, every Baal Nefesh, every person should be machmir on himself. He says, same thing as somebody that's walking, and he has to walk by foot a big distance, and it's going to be a big bother, it's a big pain not to wear leather shoes. So he's allowed to wear leather shoes, but he has to take them off once he reaches the city. If he's traveling in a wagon, he's not allowed to wear shoes. Today's day and age, anyway, Paskin write that we have many different alternatives for leather shoes. There's sneakers and other things that don't have any leather in them. They're just as comfortable, or even more comfortable than leather shoes. So all these permissibilities wouldn't apply anyway, because there's no necessity to have to put on leather shoes. Nobody looks, if a person doesn't wear leather shoes but wears other shoes made out of other synthetic things, nobody's going to laugh at him, even if he's living amongst non-Jews, and be just as if he needs to walk, however long it might be, it'll be just as good without wearing leather shoes. Sif Yud Beis says, like we mentioned before, marital relations are prohibited. The person shouldn't even touch his wife. Yud Gimel, another halacha is that one is not allowed to greet his friend on Tisha B'av. Even to say good morning is prohibited. If somebody that's unaware, or if a non-Jew greets him, so he should answer very softly, without, very just matter-of-factly, and that he shouldn't ignore them, so he shouldn't get upset, but he shouldn't answer very warmly, and so on. So too, a person is not allowed to send presents to his friend, because sending a present is considered like a greeting. It's another way, another form of making a social connection, which is prohibited on Tisha B'av as an act of mourning. Sif Yud Daled, he says one should not walk in the street. In other words, just take leisurely walks. You shouldn't come to happiness and laughing. On Tisha B'av, we're not supposed to be Masiach Das Min Avelus. One should not, focus on other things in a way that it makes him forget about his mourning. And for that same reason, he should not do things of happiness which take away from the feeling of mourning that's on Tisha B'av. Smoking is a discussion. Some people prohibit smoking on Tisha B'av, some people permit. The Kitzur Shulchan Aruch writes they permit to do it after midday, quietly in the house, not publicly, not to do it in the open. There are other opinions that permit one to do it secretly, quietly, even by day, in the morning. The other hand is the whole question about smoking year-round, whether in general it's permissible al pi halacha. But at any rate, this is what it says over here. Tes Vav, Siv Tes Vav, the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch speaks about malacha, doing work on Tisha B'av. It says our custom is that any malacha, any activity that takes some time, so even if it's not being done in a professional way, we prohibit on the night and day of Tisha B'av until midday. So doing household repairs or things like that, or sewing a button, even anything that takes time, we don't do on Tisha B'av. However, after midday, it's permissible. So too, he says business, we don't do until midday, but after midday it is permissible. However, even after midday, what is permissible is only in a way that he shouldn't, get involved in his business affairs in a way that he's Masiach Das, that he loses focus on the morning, on the Avelos of Tisha B'av. And it's brought down actually that whoever does the Malacha B'Kfis, whoever does something in a way that he sets himself to do it on Tisha B'av, in a way that he, just doesn't do it matter of factly, but in a way that he puts his time and effort in it, in a way that he loses focus of the morning of Tisha B'av, so it says that he doesn't see a sign of siman bracha from such work. So if he's being kavei asim lach, he's putting himself, not just doing it, matter as a way of chance, but he's being kavei himself, he's establishing himself to do work. It's not a good thing that's said about that. However, somebody that is Yirei Shemayim, somebody that's fearful of heaven, should be machmir, should be careful the whole day not to do any malach, any business, in order that he should not lose focus at all from the morning of Tisha B'av. Through a goy, it is permissible to do anything, but even that, poskim say that it shouldn't be done in a case where it's public knowledge that he's, let's say, if everybody knows it's a Jewish store and it's a non-Jewish employee that's non-Jewish worker that's doing it instead of the owner, so then it's clear that he's being done for the Jew, that will be prohibited. Stores, say usually the way poskim write is that stores should be closed until midday. However, stores that sell food are open earlier. But one thing that he adds, he says that a davar ha'avid, something that might be lost, is permitted to be done even by himself, even before midday. So some business transactions, whatever it is that whatever it might be, things that are let's say if a person won't do this, he's going to lose a lot of money, that he's allowed to do on Tisha B'av. Same thing would be, poskim write that if there's a household repair that needs to be done, let's say there's a leak in the pipe and he's going to lose a lot of water and pay a big bill if he won't do it until later on, until after midday, he's allowed to do that in the morning. Taz Zayin says the minhag is that we don't sit on a chair, not by night and not by day, until after midday. Only we sit on the floor on a low chair, but after midday we sit on regular chairs. But all other things that are prohibited on Tisha B'av are prohibited until Tzeis HaKechavim, until nightfall, until after the fast. Sif Yud Zayin, the minhag is that we don't prepare the needs of a meal until after midday. But for mitzvah, let's say you're preparing for a meal of a mitzvah, there's a bris that's on Tisha B'av and the meal is at night, you could prepare that before midday. In general, it says that we don't wash out also dishes or clean up the house, although technically, al pi halacha, it's not lav dafka prohibited to sweep the floors, whatever it is, but it's accepted that all household activities, cleaning up and washing dishes, clearly brought down not to do until midday. Sif Yud Ches, he speaks about a bris, how exactly it works. We'll skip this. Sif Yud Tes says that by mincha we put on talis and tefillin with a bracha. If you put on tzitzis in the morning, you didn't make a bracha. Like I mentioned earlier, that we don't make a bracha in the morning. You make it now, before mincha, providing, obviously, that you put on a new pair of tzitzis in the morning. If you're still wearing the tzitzis that you slept with, so then in general, you don't make a bracha on it. And any day of the year, because it's a whole question whether you would be allowed to make a bracha on it. But if you put on a new pair in the morning, so on every day of the year you would make a bracha in the morning. On Tisha B'av, you don't make a bracha on it until mincha. And then married men, they put on a talus, a regular talus, and fill them with a bracha. And we say whatever we didn't say by Shachar, Shir Shal Yoyim and Kilikenu. And by us we say also we say Shema with because in the morning by Shema we didn't hold the tzitzis, so we say Shema. And generally supposed to say Shema in tefillin. So when you're putting on tefillin, you say Shema. You say Shir Shal Yoyim and Kilikenu. Say Mini Chabad, we say the Shir Tilim and the Chitas, whatever. Then those things that we didn't do by Shachris. And then we daven mincha, say karbonos and ashrei and half a kaddish, and we're reading the Torah, vayichal and the haftarah like a regular tainas tzibur. Then when we bring this, you put the sefer Torah back, and the chazan says chatzi kaddish. And then we daven shmeina esrei, and we say nachem. One prayer that we say nachem, that we say once a year, the mincha of Tisha B'av. We say it in the bracha of Yerushalayim. You can see it in the Sidurim. You have there the bracha of nachem. If you missed it in Yerushalayim, so we say it in Shema Keilenu, in the bracha of Shema Keilenu, by mincha of Tisha B'av. There's two things that everybody says. There's nachem, which you say in the pasuk of the bracha of Yerushalayim, and there's a tefillah of Anenu, which we say in the blessing of Shema Keilenu. So if one missed nachem, the bracha of Yerushalayim, he says it by the bracha of Shema Keilenu after Anenu. But in such a case, he does not finish off Baruch Menachem Tzine V'nei Yerushalayim. If you say it in the proper place in the bracha of Yerushalayim Mincha, you not only add this piece of Nachem, but there's a special ending that you say Menachem Tzine V'nei Yerushalayim. If you're saying it in the bracha of Shema Keilenu, obviously you skip that ending and finish off the regular ending of the bracha of Shema Keilenu. Baruch Atah Hashem Shmei Tefillah. If he did not remember it even over there, he already said Baruch Atah Hashem, Hashem's name of the bracha of Shemei Tefillah, so then he just doesn't go back. He finishes Shemei Tefillah and he doesn't go back. There are other opinions that are not mentioned here in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, which say that he says it in the Ritzei, the next bracha, in the Ritzei, where you would usually say Yalav V'Yavoi, before V'Sech Hazan, he could say it over there, obviously without the ending of Baruch Atah Hashem, Menachem Tzine V'nei Yerushalayim. There are other opinions that hold that he could even say it in, if he forgot it there, he could even say it in the bracha of Moedim before Val Kulam, or usually say Val Hanissim on Chanukah and Purim, he could say it over there. Some people seem to disagree with that, but there are poskim that say that he could say it there. If he forgot it even there, so after a Lekainet Soir, before he says the last Yul Rotzen, he could say the paragraph of Nachem. The same thing is by Anenu, there isn't too many options. Comes to Anenu, which we say in a regular time, is Sibur. So Anenu we say in the bracha of Shema Keilenu. The individuals we say in the bracha of Shema Keilenu. The Chazan says it as a separate bracha Anenu, by before the Fa'enu. But we say it, each individual says it in Shema Keilenu. If you forgot it over there, once you already said the name of Hashem, Baruch Atah Hashem, before the ending of the bracha of Shema Tefillah, he already doesn't go back. He continues, but he says Anenu. He could say it after Lekainet Tzor, before the last Yul Rotzen, he could say Anenu over there. If the Chazan forgets Anenu, the Nachem, the Chazan says like everybody else. I guess the same laws would apply if he forgets Nachem. Same thing would apply, like I mentioned earlier. Regarding Anenu, we mentioned earlier in the previous year, if you forgot Anenu in its proper place, the Chazan says Anenu as a bracha by itself with its own ending. If he forgets Anenu there, so he says it in Shema Keilenu, in the place where every individual says Anenu by Mincha, and he finishes off, he says Gat Shmei Tfilos Kol Peh, and he finishes off Baruch Atah Hashem Enu L'Am Yisrael Beis Sadar Shemei Tefillah. If he forgot to say it in Shema Keilenu, Alter Rebbe writes, he says it after Sim Shalom, he says it as a bracha, separate, but he says it as a bracha by itself after Sim Shalom. The Shatz by Chazaras HaShatz says Birchas Koyanim Elokeinu Elokei Aviseinu. Regular Tainus Sibur, we say it by Mincha. Yivarech Hashem Yishmerecha, the Psukim over there before Sim Shalom. After Shemoneh Esrei, we say complete Kaddish without with Teskabel. Earlier by Shachris we skipped Teskabel, but by Mincha we already say Teskabel. We take off the Tefillin, and for those that put in Abeno Tam, obviously put in Abeno Tam now, and make sure to do it before Shkia, particularly if you're davening Mincha late. You have to make sure to put it on before Shkia. The fact that it's Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin doesn't mean that you could put it on until Rabbeinu Tam Shkia, because one thing has nothing to do with the next. So if, one should definitely try to put on, make sure to put on Rabbeinu Tam before Shkia. If you didn't put it on, it's better to put it on afterwards than not to put it on at all. But it's definitely not L'chatchila. Particularly Al Pi Kabbalah, you're not supposed to put on Tefillin after Shkia. Afterwards, after the fast is out, we have a Ma'ariv. If there's a Levana out, we do Kiddush Levana. And it's our minhag is, it's brought down, the Rebbe brings down that we wash Negelwasser, because in the morning we only wash the fingers. So like now we wash Negelwasser on the whole hand. Like we would usually do in the morning. We rinse our mouth, we rinse our face. And it's best to put on shoes before Kiddush Levana. Other poskim also write that one should eat something, at least eat something before Kiddush Levana. But if he's going to go home and eat, and time he comes back, he'll lose it saying Kiddush Levana with a minyan. It's better if you say it with a minyan than going home to eat something. And he brings down here that the reason that Pi Kabbalah, Kiddush Levana and Motzei Tisha B'av has a very big significance, because we know that the renewal of the moon, which is what Kiddush Levana is all about, when we make the bracha, when we see the new moon, that refers to the renewal of the Jewish people, the coming of Mashiach, that just like the moon, it goes through a cycle. First it comes smaller and smaller until it disappears, and then it reappears. So the same thing is that even after the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, when the Shechina, went into Galus, and the Yidden went into Galus, and it seemed that things were getting worse and worse, but nevertheless, there's the renewal that comes after the Churban, and like we know that on Tisha B'av, Mincha, the reason why, the pneumistic reason, the reason according to the inner level of things, why then is a time when the certain things are eased, like we sit on chairs and we put on talis and tefillin already, because that's the time when Mashiach, it says that Mashiach was born on Tisha B'av. This is already the time of nechama, of comforting. That's why our minhag Ashkenaz is that we say nachem by mincha, because that's already, nachem means to be comforted. That's a time of nechama. So saying Kiddush Levana after Tisha B'av signifies this renewal, birth of Mashiach, the birth of Malchus Beis David, which is connected with Tisha B'av, which comes after the Yerida, after the descent of Tisha B'av. We should take a merit to have the coming of Mashiach speedily right now, when the day of Tisha B'av will be turned into the happiest day of the year. May it happen, take it from Miyad Mamish.